Amara Johnson had never seen a grown man's hands shake while reading text messages until that Tuesday evening at Romano's restaurant. She sat alone at her corner table, exhausted from a 12-hour shift at City General Hospital, when she noticed the well-dressed man at the table next to hers. His expensive suit couldn't hide the terror in his eyes as his phone buzzed repeatedly. The man kept glancing toward the entrance, his jaw clenched tight. Another message arrived and Amara watched his face go pale. She tried not to stare, but something about his obvious distress made her nursing instincts kick in. He looked like he might pass out right there in the middle of the restaurant. Two people in dark clothing entered the restaurant. They scanned the dining room with cold, calculating eyes. The man with the phone immediately ducked his head lower, but Amara could see sweat beading on his forehead. The newcomers began walking between tables, clearly searching for someone. That's when the man stood up quickly and approached her table. His movements were smooth despite his obvious panic, and Amara noticed he was quite handsome with dark hair and striking blue eyes. But those eyes held desperation. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said quietly, leaning closer to her table. "But I need your help. Could you please pretend to be my girlfriend for the next few minutes?" Amara's first instinct was to help. She had spent her entire career caring for people in crisis, and this man was clearly in some kind of trouble. Without hesitation she nodded. "Of course," she whispered back. "Sit down." Relief flooded his features as he quickly moved to the chair across from her. He reached across the table and gently took her hand, his fingers still trembling slightly. "Thank you," he breathed. "I'm Julian, by the way. Julian Cross." "Amara Johnson," she replied softly, squeezing his hand reassuringly. The two people in dark clothing approached their table. They were both tall and intimidating, with serious expressions that made Amara's heart rate increase. "Mr. Cross," the woman said coldly, "we need to talk." Julian's grip on Amara's hand tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm having dinner with my girlfriend right now. Whatever you need can wait until tomorrow." "This can't wait," the man replied, his tone threatening. Amara felt Julian's hand shake again, and something inside her flared up. She had dealt with difficult family members and aggressive visitors at the hospital many times. Her training kicked in. "Excuse me," Amara said firmly, looking directly at the two strangers. "We're trying to have a private dinner. If you have business with Julian, you can contact his office during normal business hours." The woman looked surprised by Amara's confidence. She studied Amara's face carefully, then glanced back at Julian. "We weren't aware you were seeing someone seriously," she said slowly. "Well, now you are," Amara replied calmly. "And I'd appreciate it if you let us finish our meal in peace." After a tense moment, the two strangers nodded curtly and walked away. Amara watched them leave the restaurant entirely before turning back to Julian. His hands had stopped shaking, but his eyes were still wide with disbelief. "I can't believe that worked," he said quietly. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what you just did for me." Amara studied his face. He seemed genuine, not like someone involved in anything dangerous. Her instincts told her he was a good person in a bad situation. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" she asked gently. Julian ran his free hand through his hair. "It's complicated. Family business, you could say. Those people work for someone who's trying to force me into doing something I don't want to do." "Marriage?" Amara guessed, reading between the lines. He looked surprised. "How did you know?" "I'm a nurse. I'm good at reading people. Plus, the woman mentioned not knowing you were seeing someone seriously. That suggests they expected you to be single and available." Julian nodded slowly. "My mother has very specific plans for my life. She's arranged for me to marry someone I don't love, and she's not taking no for an answer." "That's awful," Amara said sincerely. "No one should be forced into marriage." "Exactly." Julian's expression grew hopeful. "Look, I know this is crazy and I know we just met, but would you consider helping me out for a little longer? I could really use someone on my side right now. Have you ever been in a situation where a stranger's kindness changed everything? What would you do if someone desperately needed your help? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories that will restore your faith in human kindness." Amara considered his request. Every instinct she had told her to trust this man. He had kind eyes, and his desperation seemed genuine rather than manipulative. Plus, she had always been someone who helped others without expecting anything in return. "What exactly would you need me to do?" she asked. "Just pretend to be my girlfriend for a few weeks. Come to some family dinners, maybe a few social events. Nothing inappropriate, I promise. Just help me convince my mother that I'm serious about someone else." "And in return?" I'll pay you for your time. I know it's a lot to ask. Amara shook her head. I don't need payment. But I do need to know more about what I'd be getting into. Julian's smile was the first genuine one she'd seen from him all evening. You're incredible. Most people would have walked away by now. I'm not most people, Amara replied simply. No, you're definitely not. Julian's voice held admiration. Would you be willing to have coffee with me tomorrow? I can explain everything properly, and you can decide if you're willing to help. Amara thought about her student loans, her tiny apartment, and her quiet life. Part of her craved adventure, and another part of her simply wanted to help someone who seemed genuinely in need. Okay, she said. But I have one condition. Anything. If I'm going to pretend to be your girlfriend, I need to know the real you. No lies, no pretending to be someone you're not when it's just us talking. Julian nodded seriously. Deal. Complete honesty. They exchanged phone numbers and Julian insisted on paying for Amara's dinner. She started to protest, but he held up a hand. Please. It's the least I can do after you saved me from a very uncomfortable conversation. Amara accepted gracefully, sensing that this was important to him. As they prepared to leave, Julian turned to her one more time. Thank you, Amara. I mean it. You have no idea how much this means to me. Everyone deserves to choose their own path in life, she replied simply. Walking to her car, Amara couldn't help but wonder what she had just gotten herself into. But for the first time in months, she felt excited about something new happening in her life. The next evening, Amara sat across from Julian at a quiet coffee shop near the hospital. He looked more relaxed than he had the night before, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. Without the desperate tension, she could see just how handsome he really was. Thank you for meeting me, Julian said, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup. I wasn't sure you'd show up. I said I would, Amara replied simply. So tell me the whole story. Julian took a deep breath. My name is Julian Cross. My family owns Cross Technologies, one of the largest software development companies on the West Coast. My mother, Patricia Cross, is the current CEO, and she's been grooming me to take over since I graduated college. Amara's eyes widened slightly. She had heard of Cross Technologies. It was a massive company worth billions of dollars. The problem is, Julian continued, my mother doesn't just want to control my career. She wants to control every aspect of my life, including who I marry. The woman those people mentioned yesterday? Rebecca Hamilton. Her family owns Hamilton Industries, a major supplier for our company. My mother has decided that marrying Rebecca would be perfect for business. She's been pushing this arrangement for 2 years now. Amara frowned. But surely you can just say no. Julian's expression darkened. I tried. Last month, my mother gave me an ultimatum. Either I propose to Rebecca by the end of the year, or she'll remove me from the company and write me out of her will entirely. She can do that? Legally, yes. She owns the majority shares and technically I work for her. If I lose my position at Cross Technologies, I lose everything I've worked for my entire life. Amara studied his face. But you'd rather lose everything than marry someone you don't love? Absolutely. I've seen what loveless marriages do to people. My parents barely tolerated each other before my father died. I refuse to live that way. The sincerity in his voice convinced Amara completely. This wasn't about money or power for Julian. It was about freedom and the right to choose his own life. So where do I fit in? She asked. If my mother believes I'm serious about someone else, she might back down from her ultimatum. She's always said she wants me to be happy, even though her actions suggest otherwise. And those people at the restaurant? Julian's jaw tightened. Rebecca hired them to keep tabs on me. She wants to make sure I'm not seeing anyone else. When they report back that I have a girlfriend, it should buy me some time to figure out a permanent solution. Amara considered everything he had told her. The situation was complicated, but Julian seemed like a good person trapped by circumstances beyond his control. What would you need me to do specifically? She asked. Come to family dinners on Sundays. Attend a few social events. Maybe meet some of my business associates. Nothing too demanding and I'd work around your schedule at the hospital. For how long? A few weeks, maybe a month. Just long enough to convince my mother that I'm serious about building a life with someone other than Rebecca. Amara thought about her own life. Between work and sleep, she didn't have much of a social life anyway. And something about Julian's situation touched her heart. She had always believed that people should be free to make their own choices about love and marriage. Okay, she said. I'll help you. Relief flooded Julian's features. Really? Just like that? Just like that? but I have some conditions. Name them. First, complete honesty between us at all times. If I'm going to convince your family that we're together, I need to know who you really are. Julian nodded. Absolutely. Second, nothing happens that makes either of us uncomfortable. This is pretend, and it stays that way unless we both decide otherwise. Of course. I would never pressure you into anything. Third, when this is over, it's over. No drama, no hard feelings. We help each other out and then go back to our normal lives. Julian hesitated for just a moment before nodding. Agreed. Good. Now, what do I need to know about your family? For the next hour, Julian told her about his mother's expectations, the family business, and the social circles they moved in. He explained the kinds of events they'd need to attend and the people they'd need to convince. You'll need some new clothes, Julian said eventually. The events we attend can be pretty formal. Amara felt a flash of insecurity. She had nice clothes but nothing that would fit into high society events. I can handle that, she said quietly. Actually, I'd like to take care of it. Consider it part of our arrangement. You're doing me a huge favor, and the least I can do is make sure you have everything you need to feel comfortable. Amara started to protest, but Julian held up a hand. Please. This is important to me. I don't want you to feel out of place or uncomfortable because you're helping me. Something in his tone made her reconsider. This wasn't about charity or pity. Julian genuinely wanted to make sure she felt confident and prepared. Okay, she said. Thank you. Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. As they prepared to leave, Julian pulled out his phone. Can I add you to my calendar? The first family dinner is this Sunday. Amara nodded and they synchronized their schedules. Looking at Julian's calendar, she could see he was incredibly busy with meetings and business obligations. One more thing, Julian said as they walked to their cars. My mother can be intense. She's going to ask you a lot of questions. I can handle intense. I deal with worried family members and difficult doctors every day. Julian smiled. I have a feeling you're going to fit in better than you think. Driving home, Amara wondered if she had just made the smartest or most foolish decision of her life. But something told her that helping Julian was the right thing to do. Sunday evening arrived faster than Amara had expected. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the simple black dress Julian had helped her pick out the day before. The shopping trip had been surprisingly enjoyable. Julian had excellent taste and had insisted on buying her several outfits suitable for different occasions. You look beautiful, he had said when she tried on the black dress. But more importantly, you look like yourself. Now, sitting in Julian's luxury car as they drove through an exclusive neighborhood, Amara felt her nerves building. The houses they passed were enormous, with perfectly manicured lawns and impressive gates. Nervous? Julian asked, glancing over at her. A little, Amara admitted. I've never had dinner at a mansion before. Just be yourself. That's all you need to do. The Cross family estate was even more impressive than Amara had imagined. The house was a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa with elegant columns and beautiful gardens. Julian pulled up to the front entrance, where a uniformed valet waited to take his car. This is really how you grew up? Amara asked in amazement. Every day, Julian replied. It's beautiful, but it can feel like a prison when you're trying to live your own life. They walked to the front door, which was opened by a friendly older woman in a neat uniform. Good evening, Mr. Julian, she said warmly. Your mother is waiting in the formal dining room. Thank you, Helen. This is Amara Johnson. Amara, this is Helen Martinez. She's been taking care of our family for 20 years. Helen smiled at Amara. It's wonderful to meet you, dear. We've heard so much about you. Amara felt Julian stiffen slightly beside her. Apparently, his mother had been discussing their relationship with the staff. They walked through the house, which was decorated with expensive art and antique furniture. Everything was perfect and intimidating, but Amara kept her expression calm and interested. The formal dining room was elegant, with a long mahogany table set with fine china and crystal glasses. At the head of the table sat a woman who was clearly Julian's mother. Patricia Cross was in her late 50s, with perfectly styled gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore a designer suit that probably cost more than Amara made in a month. Mother, Julian said, moving to kiss her cheek. I'd like you to meet Amara Johnson. Amara, this is my mother, Patricia Cross. Patricia stood and extended her hand. Her grip was firm and her gaze was intense as she studied Amara's face. Ms. Johnson, Julian has told me so little about you. I'm very curious to learn more. Thank you for inviting me to dinner, Mrs. Cross, Amara replied warmly. Your home is absolutely beautiful. Please call me Patricia. And thank you. The house has been in the Cross family for 3 generations. They took their seats, with Amara sitting across from Patricia and Julian beside her. The conversation started with polite small talk about the weather and current events. Amara found Patricia to be intelligent and well-informed, though there was a definite intensity to her questions. So, Amara, Julian tells me you're a nurse, Patricia said as the first course was served. Yes, I work at City General Hospital. I've been there for 3 years now. That must be very demanding work. It is, but it's also very rewarding. I love being able to help people during some of the most difficult times in their lives. Patricia nodded approvingly. That's admirable. So many young people today seem to only care about easy money and instant gratification. Amara glanced at Julian, who was watching the conversation carefully. I think everyone has to find their own path, Amara said diplomatically. What matters is doing something that makes a positive difference. Indeed. And how did you and Julian meet? Amara had prepared for this question. She and Julian had agreed on a story that was close to the truth. We met at a restaurant downtown. I was having dinner alone after a long shift, and Julian was at the next table. We started talking and I found him very easy to talk to. How romantic, Patricia said, though her tone suggested she found it anything but romantic. And how long have you been seeing each other? Not very long, Amara replied honestly. But sometimes you just know when you've met someone special. Julian reached over and took her hand, squeezing it gently. The gesture felt natural, and Amara found herself smiling at him genuinely. Yes, he said softly. Sometimes you do. Patricia's expression shifted slightly, and Amara thought she saw a flicker of surprise in the older woman's eyes. The rest of dinner passed pleasantly. Patricia asked about Amara's family, her education, and her career goals. Amara answered honestly, and gradually the interrogation began to feel more like a normal conversation. Your parents must be very proud of you, Patricia said when Amara mentioned finishing nursing school while working part-time. My mother is. She raised me by herself after my father died when I was young. She always taught me that hard work and kindness were the most important things in life. Something in Patricia's expression softened. A single mother. That must have been difficult for both of you. It was sometimes, but it made us close. She's my best friend. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. Family is very important. Julian's father died when he was in college. I understand how challenging it can be to maintain family connections when someone important is missing. For the first time that evening, Amara felt like she was seeing the real Patricia Cross, not just the intimidating CEO. After dinner, Patricia walked them to the front door. It was lovely meeting you, Amara, she said, and this time her smile seemed genuine. I hope we'll see you again soon. I'd like that very much, Amara replied sincerely. In the car driving home, Julian was quiet for several minutes. That went better than I expected, he finally said. Your mother isn't as scary as you made her sound. She's tough, but I think she genuinely cares about you. Julian glanced over at her. You handled her perfectly. And what you said about your mother, that was really touching. It was the truth. My mom always said that you can tell a lot about people by how they treat others, especially when they don't have to. Smart woman. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Amara found herself thinking about the evening and how natural it had felt to sit beside Julian, to hold his hand during dinner. Same time next week? Julian asked as he pulled up to her apartment building. Of course. This is actually kind of fun. Julian's smile was warm and genuine. I'm glad you think so. And Amara? Thank you again. You were perfect tonight. As Amara watched him drive away, she realized that their fake relationship was starting to feel surprisingly real. And that thought both excited and worried her. 3 days after the family dinner, Amara was checking on patients during her afternoon shift when she heard a commotion at the nurse's station. Her colleague Nina Washington was talking animatedly with someone Amara couldn't see. Amara, Nina called out when she spotted her. You have a visitor. Amara walked over to find Julian standing at the nurse's station, looking slightly out of place in his expensive suit among the hospital's busy atmosphere. He held a coffee carrier and a bag from the hospital cafeteria. Hi, he said with a slightly nervous smile. I hope it's okay that I came by. I brought coffee for you and your colleagues. Nina raised an eyebrow at Amara, clearly impressed by the handsome stranger bearing gifts. That's very thoughtful, Amara said, accepting the coffee gratefully. Everyone, this is Julian. Julian, this is Nina, my best friend and the person who keeps this floor running smoothly. Nice to meet you, Nina said, studying Julian with obvious interest. Any friend of Amara's is welcome here. Julian distributed coffee to the other nurses on duty, making polite conversation and asking about their work. Amara watched him interact with her colleagues and was struck by how genuinely interested he seemed in what they had to say. "I have a few minutes," Amara told him. "Would you like to see the patient garden? It's one of my favorite places here." They walked down the hall toward the elevator, and Amara could feel Nina's curious gaze following them. "You're going to get interrogated later," Julian said quietly. "Nina means well. She's protective of me." The patient garden was a peaceful outdoor space with comfortable seating and beautiful flowers. Several patients were sitting outside with their families enjoying the fresh air. "This is really nice," Julian said, looking around appreciatively. "Did you help design this?" "I was on the committee that planned it. We wanted patients and families to have a place where they could feel normal for a little while, away from all the medical equipment and sterile hallways." They sat on a bench near the fountain. Julian seemed more relaxed here than Amara had ever seen him. "Can I ask you something?" Julian said after a moment. "Of course. Why did you become a nurse? I mean, I know you said it's rewarding, but there must be more to it than that." Amara considered her answer. "When I was 12, my mother had to go to the emergency room. She had pneumonia, but we didn't know how serious it was. I was terrified that I was going to lose her too." Julian listened intently. "The nurse who took care of her was this woman named Carol. She was kind and patient, and she took the time to explain everything to me. She made sure I understood that my mother was going to be okay. But more than that, she made me feel like I mattered, like my feelings were important too." "That's beautiful." "I decided that night that I wanted to be the person who helps families through scary times. I wanted to be someone's Carol." Julian was quiet for a moment. "That's the most genuine thing I've ever heard anyone say about their career choice. What about you? Do you actually like the business world, or is it just family obligation?" Julian thought carefully before answering. "I love the technology side of what we do. Creating software that helps people solve problems, that makes their lives easier or more connected. But the corporate politics, the power games, that's not really me." "What would you do if you could do anything?" "Honestly, I'd probably start my own company. Something smaller, more focused on innovation than profit margins. But that's not really an option when you're expected to take over a family empire." Amara saw the frustration in his eyes and felt a surge of sympathy for him. "Maybe it could be an option someday," she said gently. "Maybe." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching a young patient play with his grandmother near the flower beds. "I should probably get back," Amara said eventually. "But thank you for the coffee. That was really thoughtful. Would you like to have dinner tomorrow night? Nothing fancy, just a chance to talk more. I feel like I'm learning more about you in 20 minutes here than I learned about Rebecca in 2 years of family dinners." Amara felt a warm flutter in her chest at the compliment. "I'd like that." The next evening, Julian took her to a small Italian restaurant that was cozy and intimate without being overly romantic. They talked for hours, sharing stories about their childhoods, their hopes for the future, and their fears. "I have to ask," Amara said over dessert, "what's Rebecca really like? Beyond the family business connection." Julian's expression grew thoughtful. "She's intelligent and ambitious. In another life we might have been friends. But there's no warmth between us, no real connection. Conversations with her feel like business meetings." "Does she know how you feel?" "I think so. But she wants the social status and business advantages that come with our families being connected. She's not interested in love any more than my mother is. That's sad for both of you. What about you? Have you ever been close to marriage?" Amara shook her head. "I've dated, but between work and school and taking care of my mother when she was sick a few years ago, I never had time for anything serious." "Do you want that someday? Marriage, family?" "Someday with the right person. Someone who understands that my work is important to me, who wants to build a life together instead of just following a script." Julian nodded. "That sounds perfect." As they drove back to her apartment, Amara realized how comfortable she felt with Julian. Their conversations flowed naturally, and she found herself looking forward to their time together. "We have the Hartman Charity Gala on Saturday," Julian reminded her as they reached her building. "It's a big event, lots of people from both our family's social circles." "I'm ready," Amara said confidently. "I know you are. You're going to be amazing." Standing outside her apartment building, Amara felt a moment of awkwardness. This felt like the end of a real date, not just a planning session for their fake relationship. "Thank you for dinner," she said softly. "Thank you for letting me get to know the real you." For a moment they stood looking at each other, and Amara wondered if Julian was going to kiss her. Part of her hoped he would. But instead he smiled gently and stepped back. "Good night, Amara. Sweet dreams." As she watched him drive away, Amara realized that their arrangement was becoming more complicated than either of them had planned. And she wasn't sure if that was a good thing or something that would end up hurting them both. Saturday evening found Amara standing in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the elegant navy blue gown Julian had insisted on buying for the charity gala. The dress was more beautiful than anything she had ever owned, with delicate beading that caught the light and a cut that made her feel confident and sophisticated. Julian arrived precisely on time, wearing a classic black tuxedo that made him look like he belonged on a magazine cover. When she opened the door, his expression of genuine admiration made her feel beautiful. "You look incredible," he said softly. "Absolutely stunning." "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." In the car, Julian briefed her on the people they would likely encounter at the gala. "The Hartman Foundation supports children's medical research," he explained. "It's one of the biggest social events of the year. My mother will be there, along with most of the city's business and social elite." "Will Rebecca be there?" Julian's jaw tightened slightly. "Probably. Her family are major donors to the foundation." The gala was being held at the grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel. As they walked through the entrance, Amara was struck by the elegance of the event. The ballroom was decorated with white roses and soft lighting, and the guests were dressed in their finest formal wear. "Julian Cross," a voice called out as they entered. "There you are." A distinguished older man approached them with a warm smile. Julian straightened and extended his hand. "Mr. Hartman, good to see you. This is Amara Johnson." "Amara, this is Robert Hartman, tonight's host." "Miss Johnson, what a pleasure," Mr. Hartman said, taking her hand. "Julian, you didn't tell me you were bringing such lovely company." "Amara is very special to me," Julian replied, and the warmth in his voice sounded completely genuine. "Well, I hope you both enjoy the evening. The auction should be particularly exciting this year." As Mr. Hartman moved on to greet other guests, Patricia Cross approached them. She looked elegant in a silver gown, and her expression was more welcoming than it had been at their first meeting. "Amara, dear, you look beautiful," Patricia said, kissing her cheek. "Julian, I'm glad you're both here. There are several people I'd like you to meet." For the next hour, Patricia guided them through the crowd, introducing Amara to business associates, family friends, and social connections. Amara found herself enjoying the conversations more than she had expected. The people she met were genuinely interesting, and many were involved in charitable work or community organizations. "You're very good at this," Julian murmured in her ear during a brief quiet moment. "At what?" "Making people feel comfortable. Everyone we've talked to tonight has been charmed by you." Before Amara could respond, a familiar voice interrupted them. "Julian, darling. I was hoping I'd see you here." They turned to see Rebecca Hamilton approaching. She was undeniably beautiful, with blonde hair styled in an elegant updo and wearing a red gown that probably cost more than Amara's monthly salary. But there was something cold about her smile. "Rebecca," Julian said politely. "This is Amara Johnson." "Amara, Rebecca Hamilton." Rebecca's eyes swept over Amara appraisingly. "Oh yes, I've heard about you. How interesting that Julian is dating a nurse." The condescension in her tone was barely concealed, but Amara kept her expression pleasant. "It's nice to meet you, Rebecca. Julian has told me so much about your family's business." "I'm sure he has." Rebecca turned back to Julian. "I was hoping we could have a dance later. For old time's sake." "I'm afraid my dance card is full tonight," Julian replied smoothly, putting his arm around Amara's waist. "But I'm sure you'll find plenty of other partners." Rebecca's smile became strained. "Of course. Well, enjoy your evening." As she walked away, Amara felt Julian relax beside her. "She seems lovely," Amara said dryly. Julian laughed. "That went better than I expected. Thank you for being so gracious. I've dealt with worse attitudes in the emergency room." "Are you rooting for Amara and Julian to find real love together? What do you think will happen when Rebecca realizes she's losing her claim on Julian? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more romantic stories that will make your heart skip a beat. The dinner portion of the evening passed pleasantly. Amara found herself seated between Julian and a fascinating woman who ran a non-profit organization for homeless veterans. They had an engaging conversation about healthcare access and community outreach programs. When the dancing began, Julian led her onto the floor for a slow waltz. Amara had taken ballroom dancing lessons in college, and she was pleased to discover that Julian was an excellent dancer. "You're full of surprises," he said as they moved smoothly across the floor. "So are you? Where did you learn to dance like this?" "Mandatory lessons from age 8. Mother's idea of proper education." As they danced, Amara became aware of other people watching them. She saw Patricia observing from across the room with an expression that looked almost pleased. Rebecca was also watching, her face much less happy. "I think we're convincing people," Amara said quietly. "Maybe too well," Julian replied, his voice thoughtful. After their dance, they mingled more with the other guests. Amara was introduced to doctors, lawyers, business owners, and philanthropists. She found herself engaged in meaningful conversations about healthcare policy, education reform, and community development. "You're a natural at this," Patricia said, approaching them during a brief break in conversations. "Have you ever considered getting involved in philanthropic work?" "I'd love to," Amara replied honestly. "I've always believed in giving back to the community." "Wonderful. I chair several charitable boards. Perhaps we could discuss some opportunities." Julian looked surprised by his mother's offer, but Amara was genuinely interested. "I'd appreciate that very much, Patricia." The auction portion of the evening was exciting, with items ranging from vacation packages to original artwork. When a week-long medical mission trip to Central America came up for bid, Amara found herself wishing she could afford to participate. "Lot number 15, a medical mission trip to Guatemala," the auctioneer announced. "The winning bidder will join a team of doctors and nurses providing free healthcare to underserved communities." The bidding started at $5,000 and quickly escalated. Amara watched wistfully as the price climbed higher and higher. "20,000, Julian said suddenly, raising his paddle. Amara turned to him in shock. "Julian, what are you doing?" "25,000, came a voice from across the room. "30,000, Julian countered. "Julian, that's too much money," Amara whispered urgently. "30,000 going once, going twice, sold to paddle number 47. The auctioneer pointed to Julian and applause filled the room. Amara stared at him in amazement. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Because I saw how much you wanted it. And because I think you'd be amazing on a medical mission." "But $30,000 is a small price to pay to see you do something you're passionate about." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever done anything so thoughtful for her before. "Thank you," she whispered. "But I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. You're going to go to Guatemala and help people who need you. And I'm going to be proud to know that I helped make it possible." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People congratulated Julian on his generous bid and praised Amara for her commitment to helping others. By the time they left the gala, Amara's head was spinning with everything that had happened. "Tonight was incredible," she said as Julian walked her to her apartment door. "You were incredible. Everyone loved you. About the mission trip, Julian. That was too generous. I need to pay you back somehow." Julian shook his head. "It was a gift. You're helping me with my family situation, and I wanted to help you with something that matters to you." Standing at her door, Amara felt overwhelmed by Julian's kindness. Without thinking, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything." Julian's eyes were warm as he looked down at her. "Thank you for being exactly who you are." As she watched him drive away, Amara realized that their fake relationship was feeling more real every day. And she wasn't sure what to do about the feelings that were growing stronger each time they were together. Monday morning brought unexpected challenges for both Julian and Amara. Julian arrived at his office to find his assistant looking worried and several urgent messages waiting on his desk. "Mr. Cross, there are some issues that need your immediate attention," his assistant said. "The Morrison account is threatening to cancel their contract, and there have been some concerning rumors circulating about your personal life." Julian frowned as he reviewed the messages. Morrison Industries was one of their biggest clients, and losing them would be a significant blow to the company. "What kind of rumors?" he asked. "Apparently, someone has been suggesting that your relationship with Ms. Johnson is just a publicity stunt to avoid your engagement to Ms. Hamilton." Julian's blood ran cold. Someone was deliberately trying to sabotage his relationship with Amara and force him back toward Rebecca. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Amara was dealing with her own complications. Dr. Thomas Reed, the head of emergency medicine, had called her into his office for what he termed a personal discussion. "Amara, I need to ask you about your relationship with Julian Cross," Dr. Reed said, his expression serious. "Is there a problem, Dr. Reed? There's been some media attention about your attendance at the charity gala." Hospital administration is concerned about how this might affect your professional reputation. Amara felt a flash of anger. My personal life doesn't interfere with my work. I know that and your colleagues know that. But the hospital board is concerned about perception. They're worried that patients might think you're more interested in socializing with wealthy donors than providing medical care. That's ridiculous. I've never given anyone reason to question my dedication to my patients. Dr. Reed held up his hands. I agree completely. But I wanted to give you a heads up that there might be some scrutiny for a while. That evening, Julian came to Amara's apartment looking stressed and frustrated. We have a problem, he said as soon as she opened the door. I know. Dr. Reed talked to me today about media attention from the gala. Julian ran his hands through his hair. Someone is actively working against us. The rumors started almost immediately after Saturday night. Rebecca? Probably, though I can't prove it. She has connections in the media and enough money to spread whatever story she wants. Amara sat down heavily on her couch. Maybe we should end this arrangement. I don't want to cause problems for your business or my career. Julian sat beside her, his expression earnest. Don't let them win, Amara. If we give up now, Rebecca gets exactly what she wants. But what if the rumors are damaging your company? Then we'll deal with it. Together. Amara looked at him carefully. Why is this so important to you? Really? Julian was quiet for a long moment. Because for the first time in my life, I'm with someone who makes me want to be a better person. Because when I'm with you, I feel like myself instead of just another corporate heir. Because the thought of letting Rebecca manipulate me into marrying her makes me sick to my stomach. The honesty in his voice took Amara's breath away. Julian? I know this started as pretend, but my feelings for you are real. I'm falling in love with you, Amara. The words hung between them for a moment. Amara felt her heart racing as she looked into his eyes. This is complicated, she said softly. I know. But some things are worth fighting for. Before Amara could respond, her phone rang. It was Nina. Amara, you need to see the news, Nina said urgently. Someone leaked a story about you and Julian to the entertainment press. Amara put the call on speaker so Julian could hear. What kind of story? She asked. They're calling you a gold digger who's using Julian to climb the social ladder. They're saying the whole relationship is fake and that you're just after his money. Julian's face darkened with anger. This is exactly what Rebecca wanted. There's more, Nina continued. They interviewed some woman who claims she went to nursing school with you and says you always talked about marrying rich. That's a complete lie, Amara said, feeling hurt and angry. I've never said anything like that to anyone. I know that, honey. But the story is spreading fast on social media. After Nina hung up, Julian and Amara sat in tense silence. I'm sorry, Julian said finally. This is all my fault. I should have known Rebecca would do something like this. It's not your fault. But maybe Nina's right about one thing. What's that? Maybe I am just a nurse who doesn't belong in your world. Julian turned to face her fully. Don't say that. You belong anywhere you choose to be. You're intelligent, kind, and more genuine than anyone I've ever met in my so-called world. But look at the problems I'm causing. Your business, my career, are secondary to what matters most. And what matters most is that I care about you and I think you care about me too. Amara looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. Despite everything that was happening, despite all the complications and rumors, she couldn't deny her growing feelings for him. I do care about you, she admitted quietly. More than I should. Then we face this together. We show everyone that what we have is real, regardless of how it started. How? Julian thought for a moment. We keep being ourselves. We don't hide, we don't run away, and we don't let anyone else define our relationship for us. Amara considered his words. Every instinct told her that getting deeper involved with Julian would only lead to more complications. But another part of her, the part that had felt more alive in the past few weeks than she had in years, wanted to fight for whatever was growing between them. Okay, she said finally. But if this gets worse, if it starts seriously damaging your business or my career, we need to reconsider. Fair enough. But I have a feeling we're stronger than Rebecca thinks we are. That night, as Julian held her hand while they watched the news coverage of their fake relationship, Amara realized that their pretend romance had become something neither of them had expected. And despite all the complications, she was ready to find out where it might lead. The next 2 weeks brought both challenges and unexpected joys for Julian and Amara. The media attention gradually died down as newer stories captured public interest, but the experience had brought them closer together. Julian had insisted on hiring a security consultant to ensure Amara's safety, and he had also arranged for a public relations expert to help manage any future media situations. Amara had initially protested the expense, but Julian's concern for her well-being was so genuine that she accepted his help gratefully. "I've never had anyone worry about me like this," she told him one evening as they walked through the hospital's patient garden. "I've never had anyone to worry about," Julian replied. "It's a new experience for me too." Their relationship had shifted after Julian's confession of his feelings. While they hadn't officially moved beyond their original arrangement, there was a new intimacy between them. They talked on the phone every night, shared meals several times a week, and had begun to rely on each other's emotional support. Patricia Cross had also surprised them both. Instead of being put off by the negative media coverage, she had become more supportive of their relationship. "Any woman who can handle that kind of pressure with such grace is someone I want in this family," she told Julian privately. The Sunday family dinners had become a regular tradition, and Amara had grown genuinely fond of Patricia. Despite her intimidating exterior, Julian's mother was intelligent, funny, and surprisingly warm once you got past her protective barriers. "I have something to tell you both," Patricia announced during one dinner. "I've been thinking about stepping back from some of my responsibilities at Cross Technologies." Julian looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean it's time for me to start trusting you to make your own decisions, both in business and in your personal life. I've been too controlling, and I can see how much happier you've been since you started seeing Amara." Amara felt touched by Patricia's words, but also worried about the implications. "Mrs. Cross, I hope you're not making any decisions because of me," she said carefully. "Please call me Patricia. And you're not the reason for my decision, though you've certainly influenced it. Watching how you handle pressure, how you treat others, and how you make Julian smile, it's shown me what real partnership looks like." Julian reached over and squeezed Amara's hand. "Thank you, Mother. That means everything to me." "There is one condition," Patricia continued with a slight smile. "I want to be involved in planning the wedding." Both Julian and Amara nearly choked on their wine. "Mother," Julian said carefully, "we haven't discussed marriage." "Well, you should. It's obvious to anyone with eyes that you two are perfect for each other." That evening, as Julian walked Amara to her car, they finally addressed the elephant in the room. "She's not wrong, you know," Julian said quietly. "About what?" "About us being perfect for each other." Amara stopped walking and turned to face him. "Julian, what are we doing here? This started as pretend, and now your mother is talking about weddings. What do you want it to be?" he asked, stepping closer to her. "I want it to be real," she admitted. "But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared that this is all too good to be true. Scared that eventually you'll realize I really don't belong in your world. Scared that I'm falling in love with you and it's going to break my heart." Julian cupped her face in his hands. "What if I told you that I'm scared too? Scared that you'll realize you deserve better than someone whose family comes with this much drama? Scared that I'm not good enough for someone as genuine and caring as you?" "You're good enough," Amara whispered. "So are you." This time, when Julian leaned down to kiss her, Amara didn't pull away. Their first real kiss was soft and sweet, filled with weeks of growing emotion and the promise of something beautiful. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. "So what happens now?" Amara asked. "Now we stop pretending and start building something real." The following week, Julian made his first major business decision without consulting his mother. He approved funding for a new community health initiative that would provide free medical services to underserved populations. When Amara heard about it, she was deeply moved. "You did this because of me," she said. "I did this because of us. Because being with you has shown me what's really important." "I love you," Amara said, the words coming out before she could stop them. Julian's face lit up with joy. "I love you too. More than I ever thought possible." Their relationship deepened quickly after that. Julian spent more time at Amara's apartment, enjoying the simplicity and warmth of her life. Amara found herself more comfortable at Julian's house and at social events, confident in his love and support. One evening, as they were cooking dinner together in Amara's small kitchen, Julian brought up a topic they had been avoiding. "What do you think about what my mother said? About marriage?" Amara felt her heart skip a beat. "What do you think about it?" "I think I can't imagine my life without you. I think I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I think I want to build a family with you and support your dreams and share all of life's adventures together." Amara turned from the stove to look at him. "That sounds like a proposal." "It's not yet. When I propose, it'll be special and romantic and worthy of how amazing you are. This is just me telling you that I want to spend the rest of my life loving you." Amara felt tears of happiness in her eyes. "I want that too." That night, as they lay in bed talking about their future, neither of them noticed the car parked across the street or the person inside taking photographs through their window. Rebecca Hamilton was not giving up without a fight, and her next move would test their relationship in ways they never anticipated. Julian's phone rang at 6 in the morning, jolting both him and Amara awake. The caller ID showed his mother's name, and something about the early hour made Julian's stomach clench with worry. "Mother? What's wrong?" Patricia's voice was tense and strained. "Julian, you need to get to the office immediately. We have a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" "The Morrison contract isn't just threatened anymore. They've canceled it entirely. And they're not the only ones. 3 of our major clients have terminated their contracts overnight." Julian sat up in bed, fully alert now. "What? Why?" "Someone leaked confidential information about our upcoming software releases to our competitors. Morrison is claiming we can't be trusted with sensitive business information." "That's impossible. Our security protocols are ironclad." "Apparently not." "Julian, if we lose any more clients, the company could be in serious financial trouble." Amara could hear the panic in Patricia's voice, and she watched Julian's face grow pale. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, Julian said. After he hung up, Amara reached for his hand. "How bad is this?" she asked. "Bad. Very bad. Those 3 contracts represent almost 40% of our annual revenue. What can I do to help?" Julian looked at her with love and gratitude. "Just be here when I get home. This is going to be a long day." Julian spent the next 12 hours at Cross Technologies, working with his team to investigate the security breach and trying to salvage relationships with remaining clients. The leaked information was highly detailed and could only have come from someone with top-level access to their systems. By evening, the picture had become clearer and more disturbing. The leaked information had been sold to Hamilton Industries, Rebecca's family company, who had then shared it with Cross Technologies' competitors. "She's trying to destroy us," Julian told his mother and the emergency board meeting they had called. "Do we have proof?" one of the board members asked. "Enough to strongly suggest it, but not enough to take legal action," their lawyer replied. "There's something else," Patricia said grimly. "Rebecca called me this afternoon. She offered to help us recover the lost contracts." "In exchange for what?" "Your engagement to her. She claims that a marriage alliance between our companies would restore client confidence and provide the financial stability we need to weather this crisis." Julian felt sick to his stomach. "She orchestrated this entire situation to force me into marrying her." "That's what I believe, yes." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'd discuss it with you." "Julian, I hate this situation, but we need to consider all our options. If we don't find a solution soon, we could lose everything." That evening, Julian sat in Amara's living room, his head in his hands. He had explained the entire situation to her, including Rebecca's offer. "She's brilliant, I'll give her that," Amara said quietly. "She created a crisis that only she can solve. I can't marry her, Amara. I won't. Even if it means losing your family's company?" Julian looked up at her. "Even then. I love you and I'm not giving that up for anything." Amara felt her heart breaking for him. She could see how much the company meant to Julian, how hard he had worked to earn his place there. "What if there was another way?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "What if you could solve the financial crisis without marrying Rebecca?" "How?" Amara took a deep breath. "What if someone was willing to invest in Cross Technologies? To provide the financial backing you need to weather this storm?" "Amara, investment at this level would require millions of dollars. I can't ask anyone to." "What about the Hartman Foundation? Or some of the other people we met at the gala? They have money and they seemed impressed with you." Julian considered her suggestion. "It's possible, but it would take time to arrange and we don't have much time. Then we better start making calls." Over the next 3 days, Julian and Amara worked together to reach out to potential investors. Amara used her newfound connections from the charity events to open doors, while Julian presented the business case for investing in Cross Technologies. The response was encouraging. Several wealthy individuals and investment groups expressed interest, particularly after learning about the company's commitment to community health initiatives. But Rebecca wasn't finished with her schemes. On Thursday evening, Amara received a call from Nina at the hospital. "Amara, you need to know something. Dr. Reed called me into his office today. He said there have been complaints about your work performance." What kind of complaints? From who? That's the thing. He wouldn't say, just that some patients' families have questioned your dedication and suggested you're more interested in your social life than your job. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. Nina, I haven't had any problems with patients or families. You know my work is good. I know that, and Dr. Reed knows that. But he's under pressure from hospital administration to investigate. After Nina hung up, Amara sat staring at her phone. Rebecca's attacks were becoming more personal and more dangerous. When Julian arrived that evening, she told him about the call. She's targeting your career now, he said angrily. This has gone too far. Maybe I should resign from the hospital. Remove myself from the situation before it gets worse. Absolutely not. You're not giving up your career because of Rebecca's lies. But if it helps save your company. Julian took her hands and looked directly into her eyes. Listen to me, Amara. We are going to fight this together. We're going to save my company, protect your career, and show Rebecca that she can't manipulate people's lives like this. How? I don't know yet. But we'll find a way. That night, as they held each other in bed, both Julian and Amara knew they were facing the biggest test of their relationship. Rebecca had raised the stakes, and their next moves would determine not just their future together, but their individual futures as well. Whatever happens, Julian whispered in the darkness, I want you to know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even if it cost you everything? Especially then. Because loving you has shown me what really matters in life. Amara fell asleep in his arms, determined to find a way to help the man she loved without sacrificing everything they had both worked so hard to build. Friday morning brought unexpected news that changed everything. Julian arrived at his office to find his assistant waiting with an urgent message. Mr. Cross, there's been a development. Mr. Morrison from Morrison Industries called. He wants to meet with you this afternoon. Did he say why? He said he received some interesting information about the security breach and wants to discuss reinstating the contract. Julian felt a spark of hope. Morrison Industries had been their biggest client, and getting them back would go a long way toward solving their financial crisis. The meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock. Julian spent the morning preparing his presentation and trying to figure out what new information Morrison might have received. Meanwhile, Amara was dealing with her own crisis at the hospital. Dr. Reed had called her in for another meeting, this time with the hospital's chief administrator present. Amara, we've received more complaints about your work, Dr. Reed said. I'm going to have to recommend a formal review of your performance. Dr. Reed, you know my work is exemplary. Can you tell me specifically what these complaints are about? The administrator spoke up. The complaints suggest that you're distracted by your personal life and not giving patients your full attention. That's completely false. I've never had a patient complaint in 3 years of working here. Nevertheless, we have to take all complaints seriously. You'll be placed on administrative leave pending the review. Amara felt the world spinning around her. You're suspending me based on anonymous complaints? It's temporary, just until we can investigate properly. Driving home from the hospital, Amara felt angry and defeated. Rebecca's campaign against her was working, and there seemed to be nothing she could do to stop it. She was surprised to find Julian's car already in her parking lot when she arrived at her apartment. He was sitting on her front steps and his expression was strange. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at your meeting with Morrison? The meeting was very interesting, Julian said, standing up. Morrison had quite a story to tell. What kind of story? It seems someone contacted him yesterday with evidence that Hamilton Industries was behind the security breach. Someone provided him with copies of emails between Rebecca and the person who stole our information. Amara felt her heart skip a beat. Who would have access to Rebecca's emails? That's what I was wondering. Morrison said the person who contacted him refused to identify themselves, but they knew details that only someone very close to Rebecca would know. They went inside Amara's apartment, and Julian continued his story. Morrison isn't the only one who was contacted. All 3 of the clients who canceled their contracts received the same evidence. They're all willing to resume their contracts with us. That's wonderful news. Your company is saved. Yes, but that's not the most interesting part. Morrison said something else. He said the person who contacted him mentioned that Rebecca had also been targeting you personally, trying to damage your career. Amara sat down heavily on her couch. She succeeded. I was suspended today pending a performance review. Julian's face darkened with anger. This ends now. What do you mean? I mean it's time to confront Rebecca directly. I'm not letting her destroy your career along with everything else. Julian, that might not be wise. If she's willing to go this far, then she needs to understand that her actions have consequences. Julian's phone rang, interrupting their conversation. The caller ID showed Rebecca's name. "Speak of the devil," Julian muttered, answering the call. "Julian, darling, I heard the most interesting news today." Rebecca's voice was sickeningly sweet. "Apparently, some of your clients are reconsidering their decision to cancel their contracts." "Yes, they are. Funny how that happened right after they received evidence of your involvement in the security breach." Rebecca's laugh was cold. "I have no idea what you're talking about. But I'm glad your business troubles are resolving. Perhaps now you can focus on more important matters." "Like what?" "Like our engagement. I believe your mother mentioned my offer to help stabilize your company through our marriage. Rebecca, I'm going to say this once clearly so there's no misunderstanding. I will never marry you. Not if you threaten my business, not if you sabotage my relationships, not under any circumstances." "That's a shame, Julian. Because if you won't marry me, I might have to find other ways to amuse myself. I hear your little nurse friend is having some trouble at work." Julian's grip on the phone tightened. "Leave Amara out of this." "Oh, but she's such an important part of your life now. It would be terrible if her career was damaged by unfounded accusations. Although, I suppose if she was no longer a factor in your life, those accusations might just disappear." "You're threatening her." "I'm simply pointing out that actions have consequences." "Your choice, Julian." The line went dead. Julian stared at his phone, fury and determination warring in his expression. "What did she say?" Amara asked quietly. Julian told her about the conversation, and Amara felt a chill of fear. "She's not going to stop," Amara said. "As long as we're together, she'll keep trying to destroy both of us. Then we need to stop her first." "How?" Julian was quiet for a moment, thinking hard. Someone gave Morrison those emails. Someone who has access to Rebecca's private communications and who wants to see her stopped. Who would do that? Someone who knows her well enough to see through her schemes. Someone who has access to her personal information. Amara's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Someone in her own family. Exactly. And I think I know who it might be. Julian pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Rebecca has a younger brother, Michael. He's always been the black sheep of the Hamilton family. Rebecca has been trying to force him out of the family business for years. You think he's the one who leaked the emails? It would make sense. He has access, motive, and he's never liked Rebecca's manipulative tendencies. Julian found Michael's number and dialed. After a brief conversation, he arranged to meet with Michael that evening. "He agreed to meet us," Julian told Amara. "He said he has information that could end Rebecca's schemes permanently." "What kind of information?" He wouldn't say over the phone. But he sounded like someone who's been waiting for the right opportunity to act. That evening they met Michael Hamilton at a quiet coffee shop across town. Michael was younger than Rebecca, with kind eyes and an honest face that was very different from his sister's calculating expression. "I've been waiting for someone to take a stand against Rebecca," he told them. "She's been manipulating people and destroying lives for years." "You're the one who contacted our clients," Julian said. Michael nodded. "I have access to all of Rebecca's business communications. When I saw what she was doing to your company, and then what she started doing to Amara, I couldn't stay silent anymore." "What else do you know?" Amara asked. Michael smiled grimly. "Everything. Every scheme, every manipulation, every person she's hurt over the years. And I have documentation for all of it." "What do you want in return for helping us?" "Nothing. I just want Rebecca to face consequences for her actions. She's hurt too many people for too long." Michael handed Julian a thick envelope. "Everything you need is in there. Financial documents showing her illegal business practices, recordings of her threatening clients, evidence of bribery and corruption. There's enough here to end her career and possibly send her to prison." Julian and Amara looked at each other in amazement. "Why now?" Julian asked. "Because I finally found people who were willing to fight back instead of just giving in to her demands. And because I'm tired of being ashamed of my family name." As they drove home, Julian and Amara sat in thoughtful silence. "It's over," Amara said finally. "Rebecca can't threaten us anymore." "It's more than over," Julian replied. "Tomorrow we're going to make sure she can never hurt anyone else again." For the first time in weeks, both of them felt hopeful about their future together. The next morning, Julian and Amara sat in the office of the city's district attorney, along with Michael Hamilton and a team of prosecutors. The evidence Michael had provided was overwhelming. Rebecca's illegal activities went far beyond corporate espionage and included fraud, bribery, and several other serious crimes. This is more than enough for multiple felony charges, the lead prosecutor said after reviewing the documents. Ms. Hamilton has been running what amounts to a criminal enterprise. What happens now? Amara asked. We'll issue a warrant for her arrest today. Given the evidence, I expect she'll be offered a plea deal that includes significant prison time. Within hours, news of Rebecca's arrest was spreading through the business community. Cross Technology's remaining clients quickly confirmed their continued partnerships, and several new companies reached out about potential contracts. At the hospital, Dr. Reed called Amara with an apology and an offer to return to work immediately. The complaints against you have been withdrawn, he said. It appears they were all fabricated. I'm sorry we didn't investigate more thoroughly before taking action. Thank you, Dr. Reed. I'd like to come back to work on Monday. We'd be glad to have you back. And Amara? The hospital board is considering offering you a promotion to head nurse of the emergency department. Your dedication to your patients, even under pressure, has been noted. That evening, Julian and Amara sat in her apartment, finally able to relax for the first time in weeks. I can't believe it's really over, Amara said, curled up next to Julian on the couch. It's more than over. We won. We stood up to someone who thought she could control our lives and we beat her. Your mother called while you were in the shower, Amara said. She wants to have a celebration dinner this Sunday. Just family? She specifically said it would be family only. She considers me family now. Julian smiled and pulled Amara closer. I love the sound of that. They spent the weekend planning their future together. Julian had decided to implement his ideas for a smaller, more community-focused branch of Cross Technologies. Amara had accepted the promotion at the hospital and was planning to continue her involvement with charitable medical missions. Sunday dinner at the Cross estate was a celebration unlike any other. Patricia had arranged for a special meal, and the atmosphere was relaxed and joyful. I owe you both an apology, Patricia said during dinner. I spent so much time trying to control Julian's life that I almost let him lose the best thing that ever happened to him. You were protecting your son, Amara replied graciously. I understand that. Still, I should have trusted his judgment sooner. You've brought out the best in him, Amara. I've never seen him happier or more confident. After dinner, Patricia excused herself, claiming she had phone calls to make. Julian and Amara walked out to the garden, where Julian had something important to discuss. There's something I need to tell you, he said, taking her hands in his. That sounds serious. It is. Amara, these past few weeks have shown me what real love looks like. Not the arranged, convenient relationships my mother always pushed, but genuine partnership between two people who choose each other every day. Amara's heart began to race as Julian got down on one knee. I know we started this as pretend, but everything I feel for you is real. You're my best friend, my partner, my inspiration to be a better person. You make me laugh, you challenge me to think differently, and you love me for who I am, not what I can provide. He pulled out a ring box, revealing a beautiful but understated diamond ring. Amara Johnson, will you marry me? Will you build a real life with me, full of love and adventure and everything we dream about together? Tears of joy streamed down Amara's face as she looked at the man she loved. Yes, she whispered. Yes, absolutely yes. Julian slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. As they held each other in the garden where they had shared so many conversations, both felt the joy of a love that had grown from unexpected beginnings into something beautiful and real. I love you, Julian said softly. I love you too. Forever. 6 months later, Julian and Amara were married in a beautiful ceremony at the Cross estate. The guest list included family, close friends, and many of the people they had met during their journey together. Michael Hamilton served as one of Julian's groomsmen, having become a close friend and trusted business partner. Nina was Amara's maid of honor, and Patricia walked Amara down the aisle since her own mother had passed away the year before. It was a symbol of the family bonds that had formed through love and choice rather than obligation. In his wedding vows, Julian spoke about how pretending to love Amara had taught him what real love actually meant. Amara spoke about how helping a stranger in crisis had led her to the greatest love of her life. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by people who loved and supported them, both reflected on how much their lives had changed since that desperate evening at Romano's restaurant. Do you ever regret saying yes when I asked you to pretend to be my girlfriend? Julian asked as they swayed to the music. Never, Amara replied. Best decision I ever made. Even though it wasn't real at first? It was always real, Julian. We just needed time to figure that out. Their love story had begun with deception but had grown into the most honest and genuine relationship either of them had ever experienced. They had faced threats, overcome obstacles, and chosen each other again and again. As the evening ended and they prepared to leave for their honeymoon, Julian and Amara knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning. They had learned that love isn't just something that happens to you, it's something you choose to build together, one honest moment at a time. Their fake relationship had become the realest thing in both their lives, and they looked forward to spending forever proving that sometimes the best love stories begin with the most unexpected chapters.